ZTNA, ZTNA, Zero Trust Network Access. Zero Trust Network Architecture. It's often talked about, very rarely understood. Uh,
Is that what we're going to talk about on this month's edition of the Cybersecurity Tech Talk sponsored by Hillstone Networks?
yes, it is in fact. And it's interesting because you and I have forever been using VPN in a corporate setting and elsewhere to gain access.
Mhm.
And we just think of like remote access or secure access as secure access, but along comes this thing called the pandemic, and
Mhm.
forces every worker to be remote suddenly, and all of the vulnerabilities of VPN get kind of exposed and exploited. Um, and so, this notion of grant somebody or something, it could be a person or a thing, access to the
Right.
network, and they have access to virtually everything, versus very
Mhm.
prescribed rights and roles on the network. And that's ZTNA, right? It's putting a bigger filter on what was VPN and forcing,
Right. It's
not
it's
enforcing, but go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say it's much more granular, right? Instead of VPN essentially gives me a secure tunnel, with
Hmm.
ZTNA, we're more governing the lanes. Maybe it's not a good metaphor. That's why we have guests to talk us through this. Before we get to the guests, though, I was looking at some statistics before we started recording. Um, ZTNA is the fastest, this according to Gartner Group, the fastest growing segment in cybersecurity.
Oh, wow.
Um, it's growing at something like 36% year over year, and spending on it is going to be a little over almost $1 billion this year in 2023, and doubling over the next 3 years. So there's a lot going on in that market, and I only throw the revenue numbers up to say that's a reflection of activity, right? If you're spending that amount of money, this is how you're pursuing things. But you and I are security Luddites. We don't know anything. That's why we have guests.
True story. I think a true story.
Uh, we have two guests. We have from Hillstone Networks. We have Felipe Brando, and then but we also have from Bidwest, a partner of Hillstone. We have Carlos Sampaio, who's
Mhm.
CTO at Bidwest. So, Carlos, tell us who you are and what you do.
Hi, Matthew. Hi, Steve. Thank you
Hey.
for bringing me to the show. Bidweb is a company, security company, 22 years old now. We are born and raised security, and we work with, as I told you, the industry partners and customers, and we do a lot of consulting to government and private enterprise. We do everything security. And right now, as you said, ZTNA came to us because of this rapid growth and the market share that's going to take for the next years to come. So we do have the partnership with Hillstone, and we are very happy to be a part of this team.
And we do have Hillstone. Philippe, as Matt was introducing you, I cut him off. Philippe Brando. What do you do at Hillstone? And welcome.
I'm Felipe Brandon. I'm sales engineer here in Brazil. And Carlos is a Bidweb, a strategic partner here in Brazil. And thank you very much. And to talk today about the ZTNA solution.
Excellent.
The way we the conclusion, or the really high level definition or way that we would position ZTNA to our CIO to get buy-in to go and really make TNA a priority is, it goes something like this. In the days of VPN and kind of partner access into your network to gain access to data or to services, you had VPN, and obviously outside of your regular firewall, you had like VPNs, but that gave you just kind of like access to go do anything, right? It was hard to really provide more granular levels of access, either at the application level, the data level, the service level. And ZTNA is the filter you would use to kind of provide that more granular access and really go at things from a position of zero trust instead of I trust you to do anything. Is that a fair way of looking at ZTNA?
I like that description. I like very much. I would probably go a little easier on the explaining of VPN it's very famous after the pandemic times because everybody VPNs now from everywhere to the corporate network. My argument on that thought is that you don't know the origin where the VPN is coming from, so it becomes a trust on the credential. If any credential of yours go missing for some reason, and it's used on some some wrong place, it's gonna go VPN straight into your network. And ZTNA puts a filter on that where you can trust the origin of the connection because everything that goes to that source has strong authentication, has another tools that you can use to guarantee and certify that that is your user trying to log in. And for an IT guy, that means that I don't have to trust the origin because my origin is going to be known every single time. I have to trust the authentication process, and the authentication process is going to have a strong authentication. But the origin is every time is going to be from a safe place. And having that, now I can have other controls on that trusted source. I can have, as I said, a strong authentication. I can have a deeper inspection on everything that is going on. I can even have something that would measure if my user is really my user. Something that would allow me to know that someone that is on vacation is not trying to log in. Someone that is in one place is not trying to log in from another place. Someone that doesn't usually do that kind of action is not trying to get that action. I mean, it eases up on the infrastructure side of things. I don't have to rely on something that I don't know. Instead, I'm trying to rely on a source that inside my control. It's everything that VPN doesn't give me. It is the protection to have a known trusted origin and a known trusted authentication process. Not sure if I made my
So
point.
does ZTNA replace, that's good. Does ZTNA replace VPN or is it kind of, does it layer on top of VPN?
No, I think in my opinion, ZTNA will replace VPN. Unless you don't have unless you don't have a secure traffic. Like, I mean, if you already use SSL, TLS, or any other kind of encryption, as soon as you have a known source, I don't need a VPN. My traffic is going to be encrypted. I'll have a strong authentication. I'll have any other tools that I'd like to use. In my opinion, it replaces VPN.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Did you want to add something?
I agree with you. We saw in the last month the many vulnerabilities in the VPN. Some, I don't know if you know, we have many vulnerabilities in the VPN, and the VPN is I think of the main access of the users now after post pandemic. So I think if the ZTNA will be replaced the VPN.
Oh, that's a good point around the pandemic with the more remote workforce and people coming in from everywhere instead of on the corporate network. That kind of amplifies the vulnerabilities that a VPN solution would have, perhaps, right? Is that what you're saying, Felipe?
Yeah. Today, I think if the most part of the customers are using the VPN, and today we know with the apps and all the environments today, all the customers are using today more and more apps, and so today I think if the ZTNA, the solution of the ZTNA, the idea, it's meshed with the security team, with the access. I think if the ZTNA will be replace the VP, the traditional VPN solutions, mainly because the ZTNA stay checking the context. The user machines can change the context when are using the VPN. The users can to use a pen drive, receive a malware in the connection. So I think if in the security vision, the ZTNA checking the context of the users and the controlling the access of the environment will be the the best solutions. Naturally, will be replace the VPN.
So, Carlos, from your perspective, you're out there talking to, end customers on a regular basis, right?
Yes.
Just as an outsider, as Steve and I talk about this, there can be some confusion around, ZTNA. I think sometimes it gets positioned as a company has a product called ZTNA, rather than ZTNA as a model for which products will support, right?
That is very common, very common. Sometimes it doesn't even have the name ZTNA on a product, but the provider told them that the product is, and the majority of the time we can find just a password lock or password safe, something like this, and but was sold as a ZTNA solution. And when you use an argument like that, it's very hard to change the customer's mind later on, to tell them that no, you're being sold a product that scratches the surface of the technology of the ZTNA, but it doesn't implement not even the smallest of the features. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes the clients, when you show what the technology can do, and the baseline for what you can expect from a real ZTNA implementation, it becomes easy to know the difference between the product that was sold with a different argument. But sometimes, especially when you have, which is our day-to-day reality, sometimes it's hard when you have a low security maturity client, usually in small to medium-sized businesses, and they bought something in the name of ZTNA that doesn't do that. It's a password lock or some kind of VPN that mirrors some behaviors, but it's not an implementation of ZTNA.
Help us out. How do you map a customer's journey? When you approach a customer and you talk about zero trust as a concept, the need for greater controls over users, other applications and things that are coming into the network for specific applications or services. How do you approach that with the customer? How do you assess where they are from a security maturity perspective? How do you assess kind of where the gaps are and what products they need to kind of build out, a real ZTNA architecture?
Okay, from my side, the main argument to know that there are two different ways of approaching ZTNA. Unfortunately for us here, the main argument to talk about an implementation of ZTNA technology is still the cost reduction on VPNs. We've been approached a number of times to try to make a project, develop a process to implement ZTNA, and the reason behind that is because the company wants to save costs on not using a VPN solution. The other reason is, which is more it's more interesting for us, is when you really want to increase your level of security, when you're afraid, scared with the loss of credentials that we see nowadays, the number of compromise that comes from a lost credential or a bad implementation of a VPN solution. When you want to build upon your level of security, it's a lot easier to show the benefits of a ZTNA implementation. But unfortunately for us now in our region, we've been approached a number of times to try to lower costs on the use of VPN solutions. But there are also other roads. We also have a lot of we didn't touch on this subject yet, but Industry 4.0 with IoT devices and micro-segmentation is also another way of talking to customers here.
So how you secure the access of those devices on the network and kind of the privilege they have on the network?
Yeah, we all know that VPN brings you just inside the network, and just inside the network means for everything. You go full stack, you go full to inside the network. With ZTNA, I have the privilege of micro-segmenting. What I say with this is, I need to map. It's going to take a lot of work, but as soon as it's done, it's done. You don't have to do any more configuration. I have to map the functionality that I want from that device specifically, and configure that on my ZTNA portal, on my ZTNA filter, to allow just that. So there is no, even if I have, even in some way, shape, or form, if I have a compromise of a credential and someone is able to bypass the authentication process in ZTNA, it is not going to have any lateral movement, because I micro-segmented a connection between my portal and that device functionality specifically. So that is very useful because, as you know, IoT devices, security in IoT devices is still a very good challenge to go through, and is not very well defined. All the vulnerabilities that we have to face with. So instead of taking care of each and every device and everything that he can do of harm to the network, I just segment the traffic to that device, and even if it's for some reason compromised, it's not gonna move laterally. It's gonna be comprised only of that device. Not sure if I made myself clear.
Yeah. So those devices are in a user class, if you will, and that user class, that's kind of how you assign them in, and that user class will have access, or will have access to very specified resources on the network, and that's it. And there's no way they can go outside of those resources, right? That's hence the micro-segmenting. Felipe, what are your thoughts on all of this? I mean, where do you kind of see, as Hillstone, so we're hearing it from a partner, how do you, as the Hillstone person, do you hear kind of the same thing from customers, or anything to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with the Carlos. Many customers here, mainly here in Brazil, the reduction of cost of the VPN is a main point, but the reducing the attack surface is I think of the many points. I think of the when we are using the ZTNA solutions, we can to reduce the attack surface and the movement lateral. I think of the main point with the ZTNA. And here in Brazil, all the most parts of the customers I try to increment the security solutions just to reduce the attack surface. I think if this is a main
So
point.
is this an approach that every IT organization is taking? Are they jumping on the bandwagon, or is it a hard sell to convince them that they need to approach cybersecurity in this way?
It has touched the executives, especially the CEO and financial officer, that they have to take care of the security. And ZTNA has become very well spoken. It has a market share that keeps getting bigger, and the talk between those executives in events and among themselves eases up the selling process. But I'm not sure if I'm not sure if this is a regional observation, because we are in Brazil. I particularly are in northeast of Brazil. It's not a region that it's not very technological in nature. So from in this region, it's still very hard, and we are still getting up most of our clients coming from the cost reduction side of things. But it is becoming more known and easy to approach, but it's still for me, it's still a hard sell here.
And Philippe, how about from your perspective? Steve, that's a really good question. Do you find that IT, say in a Sao Paulo or Rio, some of the bigger areas that are maybe a little bit more mature from a security perspective, that ZTNA is a concept that's bought into, and it's just a matter of finding the right products that fit the needs, or is it still a hard sell?
Yeah, I think if the bigger attackers the here in Brazil, I think if the user machine was the was the big challenge of the companies. I think if the users are a big challenging and at the security perspective. So most parts of the customers, I try to implement the more security for the users. I think if today let me see, I think it's more than 18% of the customers here are trying to implement more security layers, and mainly focus at the users activities, control more the users and the access to the applications. So today I think if this is the main point.
I believe that we still have some education to do with our clients. Most of them have a hard time understanding the benefits of the technology, of the implementation, mostly because they're looking for price cost reductions and lowering overheads, budgets. But from little to little, we go closer to the decision-making executives. It's very easy to convince the IT director, the CIO, the CTO. It's easy to go to the CISO and tell him that this is necessary because you have like 90%, 85 to 90% of the recent attack results coming from lost credentials or something that the user clicked that he shouldn't have clicked. And this originated in a lateral movement that took the VPN inside the network. So it's very easy to go to the technological executive or director and make a sell. But most of the public that we really want to educate and to have the buy-in from them coming from the financial and the CEO itself. So those guys are the one who have to see the problem. And Brazil helps us a lot because we see news of compromise every single day here, and this makes it easier to show the importance of having a stronger control on the technological plane, especially what comes from outside. It's becoming easier, but from my perspective here in the Northeast region, it's still a hard sell.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because especially when you talk about the cost cutting measures and budget challenges, because one of the things that we see here in the States is while budgets will get reduced or cut year over year on different initiatives, the spend on budget for security just continues to increase. And people almost spend, IT organizations almost spend the money foolishly. It's like they have money and they go spend it, but it's not as well directed. Whereas it sounds like in Brazil that there a lot more organizations were a lot more thoughtful about how they're spending their money, and everything has every investment has a cost component to it that is focused on with IT for security.
Yeah, I believe in Southeast region, São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, maybe some bigger cities in South. The when evaluating a technology, a security tool or implementation, you have a thought closer to the United States. Here in Northeast region, the upper side of Brazil, what I see is that the CEO or sometimes the business owner, it wants to know about the technology, and it is becoming a lot more fast, a lot more. The pace of innovation in security is becoming a lot harder to keep tracks on, especially if you're not from a technological background. And when you try to when you see those things and present them as a measure to implement your security process as a whole, what the executive will do is they're going to look for a tool that eases up the way for the understanding of the technology. It bypasses the really benefit that the technology can present to them. And sometimes what happens is someone that presented a tool that does not have the correct implementation of that technology is going to be bought and sold, but the real benefit is not going to be there. What I can see from I knew that ZTNA and the market share is going to be growing. I know about this. The spending on security is increasing year after year, and ZTNA has a very large part of that market share because it's going to be where everybody is going to look for protection once you know that the major part of the successful attacks come from lost credentials or abuse in the authentication process.
Yeah,
but it's still very hard to propose a technology that is not as known as VPN. VPN has 30 years of existence, and everybody knows what a VPN is. When they try to sell something that is increases on the security that the VPN provides, but they don't know what it is, it's still a challenge to be overcome.
Hey, so Carlos, earlier you touched on IoT and edge, and you said that's an ideal kind of space for this set of technologies. Are we seeing good adoption there? Are we seeing people deploying ZTNA at the edge?
Yes, that is a good observation, because we don't here in the region, we don't have a whole bunch of how do I say, technology prone enterprises, but we do have a lot of industry. We have a lot of industry in the agro, in the how do I say, the agriculture, be it for making, how do I say, it's not that it's alcohol. It's the,
Refinery or distillery. Yeah.
excuse me.
Distillery.
Distilling alcohol.
Yes, thank you. Yes, yeah.
Yep.
So we have a lot of distillery here, very much, and those guys are using IoT devices and Industry 4.0 a lot more. And when they started using that on their plants, they became worried about the damage that those devices could do. The conversation about having an IT and an OT technology plane completely separated one from the other, it's very intense here. And ZTNA comes to facilitate that. When you talk about a connection specific to that device, allowing only what is known about it, it's a very good argument. I see it's easier to talk to a CEO on a distillery. It's easier to talk to a CFO on an industrial plant, a glass industry or battery industry. It's easier to talk to them because they do have to protect. One other thing is, what do I do when I have a device that connects to controller, and that controller only talks to an obsolete operating system, and I cannot update? Oh yes, I can update the operating system, but it's going to cost me about $100,000 to update the connector. And instead of that, I will keep the vulnerable operating system, but I'll just protect it with a connection that is not going to move laterally. It's easier to talk with those guys than it is to talk with someone that has a lot of different portals, and I can just provide him with a single point of entry to that portal and a strong authentication.
Yeah, it's like you're protecting the environment that the vulnerable system is sitting in instead of attacking this or protecting the system itself through ZTNA. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Felipe, what are you seeing with customers down in the Sao Paulo area? To what Steve said, are you seeing a lot of kind of edge deployments, and IoT is kind of a big use case for ZTNA?
Yeah. I think if the industry perspective, I think if the financial customers, the technology customers, the ZTNA idea concept is so clear, and we have many cases of the customers using ZTNA today. But in other segments, we have many segments. The customers are using the firewall layer 4 and migrating to the next generation firewall, and the concept of the applications, the importance of the security of the applications. And I think if we have this challenge here in Brazil, of the industry perspective, I think if we have big challenge. But here, with the financials and technology customers, we have many customers using ZTNA, and the security benefits is, we have many cases very interesting. So I think I think if we have a big challenge with the industry.
So we established that zero trust and kind of, looking at users and devices and applications as, from a least trust perspective instead of, give them access to everything. That's a smart idea. That gives birth to the whole concept of ZTNA. So, but taking that and kind of going down a level, what products, what specific products make up a ZTNA solution, right? It's not just one thing, right? It's a number of products that work together kind of in an integrated fashion to provide that zero trust access. Is that correct, or am I wrong? How's that? what's that look like? What are the products you're selling to support this?
Yeah. The first thing is the strong authentication. On my side, you have a single point of entry with strong authentication that provides you with two-factor authentication, with sometimes a way to measure if the user is really the user with behavior analysis. And the first point is this one. And then you have that origin connect to your applications. So the applications in the inside I can filter from origin. I will stop accepting traffic from every single place in the planet to accept the traffic from a very exclusive known origin, and drop everything else. Just let that go to my application. Second thing is, as soon as I have that origin identified, I don't need to give the permission of everything to the user, not to the service. I just give explicit permissions to a specific service, and to build upon that on a specific port. And so it's going to be a connection directed from someone that's been validated, a known origin, with a specific permissions and specific destination. From the inside out, I can have my application, my internal application, mapped to a single point of destination, and everything is going to go through that, allowing my user to connect just to one single point. Not sure if I lost my train of thought here, but what more can we say? The monitoring of this, the control.
Well, this is good.
Okay, go ahead.
This is good. This is good, but what are the, I guess we'll use Hillstone in this example because you're on the podcast, but what specific products am I buying to help deliver, two-factor authentication, to deliver that, directed access only to a certain resource or that one point of contact for the app to interface with? If I'm a customer, what products am I going to order or are you going to sell me to achieve all of this?
We saw a movement post-pandemic. I think if much part of the customers post-pandemic, normally just a part of the users have authorization to use the VPN, and post-pandemic, all the users are using the VPN. We saw movement first for the authentication, a strong authentication. The customers request a strong authentication with the machine parameters, validation the machine if the antivirus are enabled or nothing. If the machine are in domain and the other machines arguments to connect the VPN. I think we saw this movement to the strong authentication, because I think if the most part of the attacks are with the stalled credentials. So, and we saw a movement, the customers implemented the web application file to try to have more control in the applications with the specific parameters in the applications. We saw this movement. We have many projects with the web application file, WAF. And we saw many projects with the network detection and response here in Brazil too. And we saw a movement, the users, the customers with the antivirals, and now using the endpoint detection response to try to control more the users and implementing the more security to the end user.
I believe that one very good argument to start that planning, at least for for the low complexity that we have to work with here on my region. One thing that helps us a lot is that when you have a Hillstone device, it comes prepared with everything to start a good implementation, at least for the first steps, for the first configuration. You have everything. You have one-stop shop with that device you can start with, and make sure and be sure that you started an implementation of ZTNA, the technology, not just some aspect of it. And you can build upon that. You need anything to go further, to go more complex architecture, you can build upon with other products. But something that caught my eye, and this is a very good argument when you start to talk, is that even the simplest boxes, even the simplest products, you can start your journey to ZTNA with one device, with one Hillstone appliance.
And you can just kind of build upon that. That's your foundational element.
Yes, as you go along, as you need to develop your strategy, as you need to go a broader scope, you can build upon that, and you will not lose your initial investment because you can just build upon.
Yeah, that's one of the things I liked when I looked at the Hillstone portfolio. Steve and I have talked about this, this ability to quickly add capabilities, on top of that foundational element so easily. And it's not about going out and having to swap a firewall out or swap a box out. It's just kind of immediately add value on top.
Yeah, and then you're already sure immediately. If you need something, you started your plan, you started your project, and then some step along the way you said, well, I'm missing something here. You can just build upon, and it's immediately available.
Yeah. Steve, what do you think?
So to kind of wrap it up, because we've been talking now, I think say it again. So to kind of wrap it up, if I'm an IT organization and this whole thing is kind of new to me, how do I take the first steps and approach this? Right? Where do we leave our audience to go next?
You call us to Hillstone technology.
Okay.
It's really easy. It's really easy. It's in this case, just start with an appliance rig. Start with a project, and it depends on how broad you want your project to be. If you want it to start so small and create a momentum and keep building on, you can start small, and you're not going to be missing anything. You can start on what you understand and you can grasp from the technology, and then you keep on going. The relation between the provider and the solution and the client, it has to be a long relation, so you can make the project keep growing and keep providing results each and every time and making it better and more useful. And you can do that very easily because it's everything there, it's available. You start whatever you feel comfortable with starting, and you keep growing your pace as much as you feel comfortable.
And Felipe will give you the last word if you have anything you want to add.
Yeah. I think with the Hillstone, the migration, it's easy. It applies the customers can to mapping all the applications by users group. we can to migrate the VPN concept to ZTNA concept gradually, and with the just mapping specific groups and make easy this migration of the traditional VPN to ZTNA. I think if with the Hillstone solutions, this is it's so easy. The customers join at this at the ZTNA solution.
Well, thank you guys very much. And thank you, Matt, for doing this with me, or you did most of the talking on our side. But this wraps up another Hillstone Cybersecurity Tech Talk. We'll be back in a month.
Thank you, guys. Nice talking to you.
Thank you very much.